Good morning, Miss Fai. Today, I'm going to present about yellow fever. Yellow fever caused by the microbe called flavivirus. This microbe also caused many other diseases that come from the same types of spreader, which are infected mosquitoes. For example, Zika virus. As we know that viruses are not count as cells, so flavivirus is neither prokaryotes nor eukaryotes. Life cycle. The basic stages of the flavivirus life cycle include first attachment to the cell surface, virus attachment to the entry of the cell before enter inside, then internalization into the host cell, which there have DNA there, virus fusion and disassembly in the endosome, transfer of the viral RNA genome into the cytoplasm, protein translation, polyprotein processing on cytoplasm here. Then translation of the viral proteins will occur over here. Next, replication of the genomic RNA. After that, they will come here, immature virus assembly and body into ER. Assembly and maturation of the virins. Virus maturation furin cleavage of PRM over here. And lastly, ultimately the release of progeny viruses from the cell. After this process, the last process is mature virus release here. Who discovered the pathogen and disease? The yellow fever disease are discovered by the U.S. Army physicians called Walter Reed and his colleague James Carroll on August 27, 1900. They discovered the disease by allowing the infected mosquito to bite on them in order to prove that mosquitoes were the main spreader of this disease. These are the picture of both two of them who discovered about the main spreader of the disease. And I think the picture here, this place is the place where they do the discoveries. How long have we known about the disease? The yellow fever virus is a flavivirus with a 400-year history. The disease found in Africa and spread to South America in the 1600s. The first report of yellow fever in the US occurred in Charleston in 1690s, and then in Philadelphia in 1699, and occurred again after 100 years later in the late summer of 1793 in Philadelphia. Describe the changes in our knowledge and attitudes toward this disease throughout history. Honestly, before I have learned and researched deeply about yellow fever disease, I know only just a general information about this disease, that it is very dangerous and mostly transmission from infected insects, which are mosquitoes. And I thought that the disease is similar to other diseases that spread by mosquitoes like malaria. And I didn't know much about their symptoms and signs after get infected. But after doing these projects and choose to do about yellow fever, I know about it better, which will be very useful for me. How has our understanding of the disease developed over time? Discuss major shifts in our understanding of the disease since it was discovered. The yellow fever was first known in 19th century as a dangerous illness. Many people had died from this disease because they didn't have enough knowledge and information about the disease. They just know that the disease was a virus. So many physicians, bacteriologists, and other more professors in every period tried hard to discover the vaccine that can prevent people from infected, but after they found out, the result was failed and had many side effects, so they stopped to use it. However, luckily in 1950s, the South African microbiologist Max Taylor could develop the vaccine, and it's also used widely by U.S. Army during World War II. What is the current research of your disease? Yellow fever is an infectious tropical virus disease that can be caught from the bite of infected mosquitoes and has symptoms starting from self-limiting fever to severe liver damage with bleeding. But luckily in 2014, researchers have found changes in white blood cells that could signal an early sign of fatal yellow fever, a mosquito-borne disease that infects 200,000 people a year. Where is the disease prevalent? How many people are currently infected? This disease is mostly occurred in tropical area of Africa and South America. At least around 32 countries in Africa are now at risk, and around 10 countries in South America, such as Bolivia, Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Venezuela, is also face the same problems as Africa. The spread of yellow fever in Africa and South America is estimated at 84,000 to 170,000 severe cases and 29,000 to 60,000 deaths annually. This is the maps of both two countries that are most risk. Here is South America and here is Africa. What is the rate of new infections? What are the rates of morbidity and mortality? According to the World Health Organization, estimates that there are approximately 200,000 cases of yellow fever, causing 30,000 deaths worldwide each year, with 90% occurring in Africa. From 1970 through 2015, a total of 10 cases of yellow fever were reported in unvaccinated travelers from the United States and Europe who traveled to West Africa or South America. 80% of these travelers died. That means before we decided to travel to those countries, you need to get vaccine before traveling. What is the mode of transmission? It is transmitted to person through the bite of infected insects or animals, especially by the infected mosquitoes, which were infected from biting other people and have virus inside their cell. What is the type of disease? Yellow fever is a communicable acquired disease. This disease is appeared because of external factor and patient's lifestyle, which do not relate to genetics or appeared before birth. Also, yellow fever is spreading directly from one person to another, and those spreaders are infected by the bite of insects, which are mosquitoes. Age group, gender, cultural group, region most affected by this disease. People at ages of 9 months or less, pregnant women, people with allergies to egg or protein, and people who due to symptomatic HIV or AIDS. And lastly, elder people are having more chance to affect by yellow fever if they are living or traveling to the risk areas such as Africa and South America. Those who decide to visit this area need to get the vaccine in order to protect themselves from the disease. According to above information, both females and males who live in Africa and South America have more chance than other people to be infected. These are the picture of those people who have more chance than other people to get this disease. Pregnant women, little kids, and old people. What damage does the pathogen inflict? How? Flavivirus include many of mankind's most important pathogens. They have ability to infect many types of cells, including neurons, to replicate and eventually to kill the cells. When people get bit by the infected mosquitoes, this virus will enter the cell and incubate it for 3 to 4 days or up to 6 days in some cases. During that 3 to 4 days, they will start to destroy our cell and immune system. Where in the body does this pathogen affect? This pathogen can damage our liver, kidneys, heart, and gastrointestinal tract. Also, they will cause patient's skin to become yellow. This disease can also cause nose bleeding and eyes bleeding in the toxic phase, which is the last stage of this disease, which is very dangerous. Major signs and symptoms. These signs and symptoms usually gone within several days. This is the first stage of this disease. Patients will have fever, headache, muscle aches, sensitivity to light, vomiting, loss of appetite, dizziness, red eyes, face, or tongue. The next stage, during the toxic phase, initial signs and symptoms return and more risks and life-threatening ones also appear. Include yellowing of your skin, vomiting sometimes come out with blood, decreased urination, bleeding from your nose, mouth, and eyes, slow heart rates, liver and kidney failure, and brain dysfunction or coma. This is the example picture of the overall signs and symptoms. What is the time sequence of the disease? After your body getting infected by this disease, the virus will incubate it for 3 to 6 days before showing some symptoms. And those symptoms will disappear after 3 or 4 days. However, in a small number of patients who enter the toxic phase or the last stage, which facing the risk stage might die in 7 to 10 days. Describe the activity of our immune system against the pathogen. The immune system responds to antigens by producing cells that directly attack flavivirus or by producing special proteins called antibodies. Antibodies attach to an antigens and attract cells that will engulf and destroy pathogen. What types of medical treatment exist? Describe how these treatments affect the progression of the disease. For yellow fever disease, there are no specific treatment. Most of the time, doctors will just give the patients the medicines to relieve fever and aching. But patients in this case must avoid aspirin or non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs, which may increase the risk for bleeding. Lastly, the best way to prevent yourself from this disease is getting vaccine before going to those workplaces. This is yellow fever vaccine and some medicines that the doctor gives to the patient. The impact of yellow fever through social, political, and economy. Yellow fever epidemic in Philadelphia in October 11, 1793 was one of the most serious outbreaks, and by the time it ended, 5,000 people were dead. The reason was because people during that period did not have enough knowledge about this disease and the vaccine was not created yet. So comparing to modern time that already have vaccine, that time was very serious. This outbreak impacted many people's lifestyles, economics had to stop such as trading, and the laws were also changed to slow down the spread. They need to find a way to prevent themselves from the bite of insects. And this is the end of this presentation. Thank you.